All right guys, so tomorrow is a massive storm, so we were figuring, hey, we might as well do the farm tour while the farm's still here. So let's go ahead and show you guys everything that's around on Goat Daddy's Farm and Animal Sanctuary. We recently went from right around, I think we had like 60,000 followers on YouTube forever, and then the last time we looked at it, it was almost like 800,000, which is absolutely mind-blowing. So for anybody that doesn't know, we're a grade A goat dairy and an animal sanctuary. We're located in South Carolina, in the very middle of the state, in Elgin, South Carolina, and my husband and I own the farm, and we have right around 250 animals here at any time. So we're gonna go ahead and head through the gate. When you first pull up to our farm, you're gonna notice it's at the very end of a 1 mile long dirt road, and we've got our farm stand outside. For all of our different events that we have at the farm, you'll first be greeted at somebody at the farm stand, and that's where you'll meet for all of your tours or any goat yoga or anything that you're doing here at the farm. You're gonna meet right here at this stand, and then we're gonna head in through this gate. If you're driving, then we can open our massive Jurassic Park gates that we have. Otherwise, you're gonna walk in through this door right here. Let me conceal the code. So guys, when you first walk in, you're gonna be in our driveway. This is where all the animals start. So we've got our horses over here. We have 3 horses, Soldier, Deanie, and Bullseye. None of our horses are rideable because the last time I got on them, they threw me on the ground. So we don't ride them anymore. Also, one of them has navicular, which means a hoof is messed up. So he has to get pain meds every day, which makes him a little bit woozy. And Soldier's just really, really tall. So I'm an easily intimidated person, and I'm not riding a horse. So we don't, any of us ride them. We also have Zane, one of our older livestock guardian dogs, inside this enclosure. And it's about a 3-acre pen. And we also have the meanest rooster in the world. KFC is his name, Kentucky Fried Chicken, because that's what's gonna happen to him if he ever attacks me again. They all live inside that enclosure. And that is actually the first enclosure, one of the first enclosures that we built when we first bought the farm. When we first bought the farm, it was just a house. It was 25 acres. And since then we've added land from buying land from neighbors beside us. And now it's 66 acres. And we also have another house built on the property, which is Jonas and Carter's. Jonas is this guy right here. Sorry for his attire. Just kidding. But yeah, that's Jonas right there.
You have to do the full body, like I think, yep.
That's Jonas right there.
Dirty shoes and everything.
He doesn't like to be on camera, so I was sure to get him on camera. But that Jonas and his brother Carter, who actually help run the farm, live on the property as well. And also we have an Airbnb on the property that you guys can rent and come stay with us. It's got a hot tub, super nice king size bed, shower, everything like that. And of course you get to come and hang out with the animals during the day. Over here in this enclosure, we've got our 8 alpacas. We've got our 8 alpacas. We've got 4 males and 4 females inside this enclosure. And we also have our 2 emus, Boomer and Dundee. Absolutely love these guys. And guys, if the audio is rough at all, I just want to let everybody know that Jonas forgot the microphone. So we're doing this without a microphone in super windy conditions. So send hate mail to Jonas. Comment down below and let Jonas know that he messed up by not remembering the microphone. So the emus came to us from another farm as babies, as well as the alpacas. The alpacas were actually adults, and they're from, some of them came to us from a fur farm, like a shearer, somebody that sheared them. And the others came from like a petting zoo type thing. And we've got 8 of them total. Absolutely love them to death. 2 of the girls were pregnant when we got them, and they had babies, and we still have their babies. All the males are castrated, and they all live together happily ever after. And then our 2 emus, 2 of my favorite birds in the world, Boomer and Dundee. We've had them for about 10 years now. These guys are absolutely awesome. This is Boomer, the female. She's not as sweet, so she's gonna walk off and look like that. Dundee, the male, is actually extremely sweet. He's pretend sitting on a nest over here right now. And they were actually raised in the house for the first couple weeks of their life. And I love them to death. They're awesome. They get along great with the alpacas, and they love this massive enclosure. All the shelters that are on the farm, we actually built by ourselves. None of us had any idea on construction or how to build stuff, but you just kind of learn. The longer you're on the farm, the more you learn. And we were able to start building fences and houses and all kinds of shelters for the animals, as well as feeders and a whole dairy. I just said he was really sweet, and to that I lied. Jonas, can you get that cloud right there? Like, guys, it looks like we're gonna have a triple hurricane, like a bad storm. So yeah, let's go see what everybody loves and the namesake of the farm, the baby goats. So the coolest thing, in case you didn't know, the coolest thing about alpacas is that all of their pee and poop is in one area. So you'll see all of their pee and poop is right there. So it's so easy to clean up. And this is one of our males right here. He is a Surrey alpaca. And then we also have Wakaya alpacas. Wakayas look like cotton balls, and Surrey get long dreadlocks that come off down them if you don't shear them. But these are super old alpacas. They're very old. And then this one back here is MJ. He's one of our youngest ones, as well as EJ, who is inside of the barn right there. This guy right here, his name is Sloth, because he's not the smartest thing in the world, but we love him to death. Super cool. He's just coming up to see if I got a treat for him. All right, I'm passing it back to Jonas. So now back to the namesake, Goat Daddy's Farm. We actually were hanging out with some friends, having dinner, and they jokingly said before we bought the farm, well, if you're gonna have all these baby goats, you should name it Goat Daddy's Farm. And we just stuck with it, and it was a catchy name, and it worked out. So this is our baby goat barn. Once the baby goats are a couple weeks old, we'll move them out here. These guys are actually about 11 days old. This girl, you guys are hearing it first, is actually gonna stay at the farm. Her name is Maraca, and she's one of our little female mini Nubian doelings. Love this little goat to death. And if you see the way that I pick these girls up, or any goats up, a lot of people pick them up wrong. They want to pick them up like this, like you do a dog, and that's not how a goat likes to be held. If you're holding a goat, you want to keep its spine nice and level. So I always pick them up like that, and that keeps them from freaking out. It also gives you a good handle on them so you don't drop them accidentally. And these are all our bottle babies. So we're milking their mom out right now, and these guys are just chilling. They just got their bottle at 2 o'clock. It's about 4 o'clock now, so they're not that hungry yet, but here in a little bit, they're gonna be super hungry. This is a little girl that's actually going to live with a friend of ours. She's absolutely gorgeous. And this little boy right here, his name is Maze, and he is absolutely covered in moon spots. I love this guy to death. He is awesome. And this little guy is going to be staying on the farm also because his father's kind of old. And so we know that we're going to have to replace him in the next few years. And I don't know the chances of us getting another buck that is that covered in moon spots. I absolutely love this guy to death. But this is just a little shelter that we can lock the babies up in. We've got a little Dutch door in here so we can keep it correct with the temperature. We also have heat lights in here that we can keep for them. And it's just a little safe space that we can keep our goats at after they're a couple weeks old and they move out of the barn or the pack and play. A lot of people want to make goats a soft bed, but they absolutely love a hard surface to sleep on. And we've got our heat light up here, so if they get cold, they actually lay up under the heat light. And then if they get warm, they'll come over here and lay in the straw because the straw is actually more cooler than the flat surface. And you'll notice that a lot of our enclosures are actually connected together. That's just to make it a little bit easier when we're moving animals from one enclosure to the next. When we move goats out of this pen or donkeys or anything like that into this pen, it's a whole lot easier just to open a gate and lure them in with food. And now we're moving into our donkey enclosure. So this is one of their little shelters that they have here. And donkeys really just need like a 3-sided shelter to stay comfortable in the wintertime here in South Carolina. But they also need fans so that you can keep flies off of them in case the flies get really bad in the summertime. Our donkeys came from owner surrenders, all 5 of them. One of them came from a rescue. Some people had actually rescued her before coming to us, but absolutely love these guys to death. The donkeys are some of the sweetest animals in the world, and these guys just want to be loved on all the time. But this is Bonita Banana. She's the sweetest little donkey in the world. She's actually the baby of Senorita Carrot right here. And Senorita Carrot was rescued by her previous home. She had super overgrown hooves and she was pregnant. And they took her in and had a vet come out. She had foundered, gotten what's called laminitis. And she had the baby and they got her on a proper diet. And she's been good ever since. And then we've got Deacon right here. We've got Eeyore is actually in the back. And then Preacher is over there. And that's their other shelter that they get up on that platform if it's really, really wet outside. And that just lets them stay super dry. I love you. I love you, Eeyore. Donkeys have super long, attractive ears. And I don't know what else to say about donkeys, but this is our donkeys. I absolutely love the donkeys. And with all of our equine and even our like camel, we used to use it for the alpacas, but we have round bales of coastal Bermuda for all of the animals, and we try to put their hay up high and keep it covered so it stays nice and dry. But we have these big nylon hay nets that they stay in to keep the hay as clean as possible. And that helps keep all that mess up from on the ground. The donkeys eat a lot, and goats are especially notorious for dropping a lot of hay on the ground, and you don't want to clean it up. So the hay bag makes it super easy. All right, so now we're heading into one of my favorite corral systems, and this is what we use for when we are say that we're trimming hooves or we're giving vaccinations to our goats. We'll pull them in this area, and then we can move them from one area to the next as needed and open and close these gates. And if you've ever worked with goats or any type of livestock, you understand the importance of having good areas that you can confine them to, especially for veterinarians. I'll go ahead and close that gate, and then I could let all the goats in here if I wanted to, and give them shots or trim their hooves or deworm them. And then as we deworm them, we can move them back to the next pen so that we keep everybody separated, and it's super low stress on them. Look at how cute this coon pig is. This is Zealand. She's one of my favorite pigs here on the farm. She's partially blind, and she's friends with our totally blind pig, and they just love to root around and dig. People get these guys and they say, oh, they don't root at all. These guys are some of the biggest rooters there are. These latches right here are absolutely amazing. We replaced all the latches on our gates with these, so it's a two-way latch, and some of them are one-way, but all these like good lift latches make life a whole lot easier. Because we're a USDA facility, we have to have a 6-foot tall fence all the way around the exterior perimeter. So this is a 6-foot tall gate that we have around the outside. So these girls here are our dairy goats. Everybody that you see in a yellow collar is currently being milked. That means that twice a day, every morning and evening, they run up to the dairy and they go to get milk. That's around 7:30 a.m. and around 6 o'clock p.m. typically that we milk all the goats. And then some of the goats, like these little Nubians here, are what we call yearlings. And these girls are just about a year old. They're actually a year old this month. It's some of their birthdays today, actually. And they will be bred here probably in another month or two. They'll get bred and then they'll go on the milking line as well. And then we've got some that have pink collars here. And these are all of our retired goats. And that just means that they're old and we don't want to rebreed them anymore. Willow and Cypress are my first 2 Nubians that I ever got. These 2 girls right here. And they're just old and they're getting to live out the rest of their days with us and just kind of relaxing and rewarding them for all the milk that they gave us over the years. Brandywine is another retired goat. She was actually a blood donor for our veterinarian for several years, and she gave blood to other goats that were anemic because her blood was so high quality and she had such good parasite resistance built into her. And that's something that we strive for with our entire herd. Our dairy goat herd is a mixture of mini Nubians like Mariah here and Wind, and Nubians like Brandy and Mirabella. And then we have quite a few Nigerians like Gandalf and Cookie, the little black goat right here. She's actually a yearling Nigerian dwarf goat. She was born last year, and she's one that we kept. And this is why everybody loves Nigerian dwarf goats, because even though she's a year old, this is how big she is. And these guys don't get very big. They get about 50 to 60 pounds, but they only produce about a quart of milk a day, which is why we have so many mini Nubians and Nubian goats in our herd. Absolutely love you, girl. All of our goats are named. We name everybody a name that corresponds with their mother's first name, the letter of their first name. So like Mirabella's baby is named Morning, and then her baby is named Morocco, which is the little baby that you met earlier. And then Mirabella also had another baby whose name is Mercedes. This is her baby from last year. Minnow is definitely Mirabella's babies. Minnow is one of my favorite Nubians that we have in here. She's absolutely awesome. But we'll go down here and look. If you notice one thing about our girl goat pen, we do not keep goats on grass. We're gonna make a whole nother video on that. Goats do not need to be kept on grass. I don't know why people have this imagination that animals look prettier when they're on grass. We do have a couple of weeds in here. We throw out clover occasionally just to let something hold the soil together so that it eliminates runoff some. But when goats are kept on grass, they're gonna have super high parasite loads. And like today, we did fecals and we hardly found any parasites in our goats. And that's because this is what's called a dry lot. We keep our goats in areas that don't have any grass because we don't want them to constantly be re-exposed to parasites by eating on the ground. So a nice wooded area that's super shaded for them, and these are deciduous trees, so they lose their leaves in the wintertime to let the sun come in, is the perfect area for them. And also in their enclosure, one of the most important things is to have some livestock guardians. Now these 2 Great Pyrenees right here are both about 10 years old. They're actually closer to 11 years old, and that's Alaska and Panda. And those guys have been with goats since day one. So we've got Alaska, Panda, and Rue that stay with the girl goats, and Zane that stays on the other side of the farm. And that's just to make sure that no coyotes or stray dogs or anything like that comes onto the property and harms the goats. So we never have to worry about any type of predator coming in here and harming them because the dogs bark all night long, and anything that comes in here, the dogs go after it. They know their herd, and even when we hear coyotes around the farm outside at night, the dogs and goats will stay together. The goats will be following the dogs while the dogs are running in the fence line, running up and down the fence line, barking at the coyotes. So the goats know that the dogs are their safety net. And inside of all of our enclosures, we have waters, of course, and we run water hoses from our well so that we have automatic waters on all of them, and we don't have to refill the waters. They just automatically refill. So the goats that have on white collars are actually pregnant goats. So like Mash right here, she is actually due to have babies in the next 30 days, I believe, or maybe 60 days. but she's going to be having babies soon, and she'll go back on the milking line. And as you can see, their hay is high up off the ground. They have to get up to eat it, and we put a whole round bale in here at a time, so they always have clean, dry hay. And all the hay that they spilled on the ground, they will not eat this at all. They will lay in it, but they will not eat it, which means that they don't get re-exposed to parasites and keeps the load of parasites very, very low. Now, if you look over here, this is one of my favorite kinds of shelters for goats. But unfortunately, because dairy goats are large goats, we don't have these for all of our dairy goats. But this is one of the best enclosures ever, just because if the goats use the bathroom, the pee and poop goes through the cracks in the board and they don't get wet. They don't get exposed to any of their pee and poop. So absolutely love these. And if you look at a lot of other countries that raise goats primarily, they will keep them inside enclosures like that are like wooden decks up off the ground, just so that they don't get exposed to any of those harmful parasites, and so that they're kept dry too. Here's another example of an enclosure that is up off the ground. This is actually one of our first goat enclosures that we ever built, and we actually moved it over here with the tractor. But this is a fully enclosed deck so that the goats can come in here when it's really cold or windy and rainy and stay good in shelter. Whenever we built the new homes for Jonas, Carter, and the B&B, we had to make a bridge to go over there because this was actually a massive ditch. So we were able to have a friend come over and turn this into a dam and build a pond, construct a pond on the property, which was something the property lacked whenever we first moved in. There was no permanent water source here. There was a couple of creeks, but that's it. So we were able to go ahead and have this pond put up, and we've of course covered it with tons of cattails and weeping willows that in just a few weeks are going to turn green and hopefully grow massive this summer. And then if you look across the pond, you'll see right here is Jonas's house, and then over here is our Airbnb. And that is where the guests will stay whenever they come over to stay at the farm, with a beautiful view of the pond and of course the girl goat herd. The last shelter that we'll show you guys is our girl goats main shelter. And as I was saying earlier, because dairy goats are such large breeds of goats, a lot of the time they want to lay on the ground because it might be hard as they get older to get up on a deck. So we do have this shelter in here for some of the older girls that are retired. If they want to lay down on the ground without having to crawl up, they can come in here in this dry shelter. And then in the summertime, we have fans in here to keep it nice and cool and shaded for them. And then we actually put diatomaceous earth on the ground, as well as agricultural limestone, just to keep it super dry in here, and that helps kill any parasites as well. All right, and as I was saying earlier, we also have water troughs for all of our animals that automatically refill. So if you were to follow this water hose, it goes all the way back up to our well inside the donkey pen, and that's our emu's water that stays nice and full for them, our donkey's water for them, and then here's our goat trough for them. And we have such a massive trough for the goats because the goats drink a lot of water. So if we have a power outage or we have a kink in the hose or the well runs dry, we have a good 12-hour window before we have to figure something out so that they have water during that time frame. As you can see, the goats love eating the bark off trees because they have stripped all the trees in here of bark, and soon after they do that, the trees die. So we've actually got to cut this pine tree down before it falls on the fence. And then what we're going to do is we're actually going to build a new enclosure for our goats, which we do about every 3 years, and we'll move them to a new enclosure that's fully wooded, and they'll live in that for a few years. And that's a great method to keep the goats from getting exposed to a lot of the same parasites year after year. Over here, we're not going to walk inside, but we've got Fleetwood, our llama, as well as 5 boy goats, 4 of which are intact, and those are our breeder bucks. So on days whenever we want to breed our goats, we'll just let the boy that we want to breed in here, and we'll let the girls that we want them to breed with, and we can wait about 30 minutes, and then we can put everybody back in their enclosure, and everybody's nice and safe, and it's a whole lot easier for us to do it that way. And then also all of our food troughs, if you look, are outside of the enclosure, so no animals can walk in them or poop in them. It's very dangerous for animals, for goats to be able to poop where they eat at, because if they do that, then they're going to consume some of their poop and all those parasite eggs also. Now there's no dogs inside this enclosure, but we do have one very dangerous llama who, if you've ever watched any of our other channels, you'll know attacks Jonas the most. But this guy is named Fleetwood, and he lives in this enclosure and attacks anything that goes in there that's not supposed to be in there. Coming on down, you're going to see the enclosure that we showed you guys a glimpse of earlier. This is for our 2 blind and partially blind pigs, Toph and Z. Zealand is our coon that came to us from a friend when she was born blind, and then Toph came to us from somebody that was breeding potbelly pigs, and when she was born she had eyelashes that were actually curved in, and that caused her to get cataracts on her eyes that cause permanent blindness. So she'll always be blind, and she's what's called a Juliana pig. She's currently in her bed asleep, but she'll always be blind, but she gets to live in this enclosure and have a great life for the rest of her life. And she's got her CNI pig Z with her. What you're gonna hear over here is our macaws that we'll take a look at later. And if you guys look way back in there, that's Toph, and she is asleep. And this girl actually lived inside of our house for the first couple months of her life and stayed in my bathtub at nighttime and is super, super tame and friendly, absolutely loves people, but she loves sleep a little bit more than she loves people. Now, this animal right here is one of the scariest animals that we have at the farm. So I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna take this camera and tell Jonas to go explain what this is.
Apologies for interrupting your cute animal content, but I hope you'll forgive me once you hear that you can actually meet and stay with the very same cute animals that you're watching right now. That's right, you can stay at our Airbnb on the farm and animal sanctuary. Not only will you be provided with luxury amenities like a hot tub, fancy schmancy coffee, a bidet if you're feeling brave, and remote control everything, but you'll also get to hang out with the 150 plus animals that call Goat Daddy's home, including Abu the camel, Norris the cow, Piper the Quadamundi, the crazy macaws, obviously the goats, and every single animal in between. Check the description to book your stay today. Now back to the video. Alrighty, so this guy right here is Abu. He is our 4-year-old dromedary camel. So Abu was born at a safari park down in Texas. And whenever he was born, they actually tied a chain around his front left leg and pulled him out of the mom super quickly. That actually caused the leg to break. As opposed to paying for the proper surgery that he needed to correct the breakage, they sold him to exotic animal traders in Texas, and then to Florida, and then to Georgia, finally to South Carolina where he was at this auction. And you could really tell that he was being improperly cared for. As a matter of fact, the person who had him was bragging about not having fed him for a day and a half before the show, just because he wanted him to follow him around on the bottle that he had. And bear in mind, he had all this traveling before he was even a month old. So we ended up getting him, and then he had to go to NC State to get surgery done and had metal pins put in his leg to actually correct the breakage. He had those pins in for a short while, and then we had to take him back up to NC State to get those metal pins removed. And now, as you can see, he has grown absolutely wonderfully and is definitely one of the most dangerous animals that we have, just because he's so huge, and camels are incredibly emotional, sentimental animals. And you throw on the fact that he was bottle fed, so he doesn't necessarily understand the difference between me and what would be his 2,000-pound mom. Plus, he's actually totally deaf.
And so what Jonas was saying about him acting like a toddler, if you look at him, he's going to throw a tantrum now because Jonas isn't giving him attention or carrots. So he's going to stomp off and run around and jump as soon as we walk away from here. But Norris, the cow that's at the back of the enclosure that we're not going to walk to because Abu will try to attack me and kill me because Abu does not like me at all. I'm the guy that gives him shots. But Norris is the cow that's at the back of the enclosure, and he was actually brought to us by a veterinarian whenever he was about 48 hours old. And he lived in my house for the first 2 weeks also because he was left out in the field to die because it was freezing cold outside, and his mother passed away whenever she had him, and the owner was just going to let him die because they didn't want to bottle feed him. So the vet brought him to us, and we bottle fed him for 2 weeks and had to do tube feeding and all that stuff. It was absolutely horrendous, but now he's a big baby, and we can go in there and put that halter on him and walk him all around the yard, and he is a perfect angel. But this dude right here is absolutely atrocious. He is the meanest animal in the world. So he's actually moving to another enclosure where the horses are very soon, and Norris will probably be going in there with him, and maybe we'll put the donkeys in with him so the donkeys can be his friend and I can take Norris out sometimes. He hasn't killed me yet, but I'm staying close to the fence. This is a sweet spot. He loves this. Okay, stop playing around, Jonas. We got to do work. We can't just stay here with the camel all day. That's why we never get the videos done. All right, guys, so as we continue up the hill, we're gonna see where our Potbelly pigs live. We actually have a little swamp at the back of this enclosure. It's just a little muddy area that we let them, that's just a sweet gumball. That we actually have for them to get in the summertime so that they can stay nice and cool. Pigs can't sweat, so they need a water source 24/7 that they can lay down in. So we've got this massive 5-acre enclosure that our Potbelly pigs get to live in. So we're just gonna do a quick once over of their enclosure and let you see some of those guys. So total on the farm, we have 12 pigs. 10 live in that enclosure, and then we have 2 Toph and Z that you met earlier. And now we're gonna walk over to the macaws. Now, as we walk over there, it's gonna be absolutely insanely loud. So I'm just gonna get Jonas to link the video above where we go through the entire macaw enclosure, and you can see those guys and the entire enclosure that they live in. And that right there is the reason why there's so many macaws in sanctuaries, because they do that just about all day long to call their flock and to call to each other. All right, guys, I'm gonna break the rules a little bit, and we're gonna step behind the guest rail so you guys can can see Rocky, our fox squirrel. So she's super sweet, just sleeping in a little nest right there, looking all harmless and innocent. But as soon as you touch her enclosure, she wants to come kill you. These guys are complete maniacs. So many people in the spring and fall go out and they find a baby squirrel on the ground, and instead of just leaving it alone so the mom can come down and get it and take it back up to the nest, they will take it inside and they will raise it to be a pet. Well, after these guys hit sexual maturity, they go nuts, literally for nuts, and they will attack people. Even if you raise them, no matter how friendly they are, once they hit maturity, they become super aggressive. It's just instinct kicks in and they start attacking the people that took care of them once. So this girl lives out in this enclosure. She was found as a baby and was raised in captivity. So if we were to turn her loose, the first person she saw, she would do exactly what you see her doing with me, which is why these guys are not good pets and they should be left in the wild. All right, now these guys right here are, as you can see on the fan, kinkajous. And I'm gonna let Jonas introduce them and he can get a little bit closer than I can.
Alrighty guys, so inside here we have the first of our 3 kinkajous. This is Miss Belize right here. These guys are another animal that's really popular in the exotic pet trade because they tend to make great pets for the first few years. And then after that, they can get very aggressive, which is the case with most of these guys. This girl was being used as a petting zoo animal and she got to the point where she started getting really aggressive. And unfortunately, the previous owner's solution was actually removing all of her teeth and filing down her canines. So she's not able to eat food as well as some of the other kinkajous that we have. On top of their super sharp teeth, these guys have super sharp claws because they're an arboreal species, meaning they spend most of their life in the treetops climbing. Now these guys are also nocturnal, but inside here we have Zabu and Cleo, 2 of our very first kinkajous. Cleo actually outlived her previous owner, and Zabu came from a cruelty case. These guys are frugivores, so the bulk of their diet consists of lots of high sugar fruits. So they're able to process sugar a whole lot better than most other animals, which makes one of their favorite treats, well, just fruit snacks. These guys have heaters inside their house, that way when it gets really cold in the wintertime, they still have a nice and toasty spot to go to. In fact, this heater right here keeps our whole house at 80 degrees, even if it gets as cold as 20 degrees outside.
And my 2 favorite animals that are on the farm are Pippin and Piper, our raccoon and Cotamundi. Pippin came from a family that had gotten her when she fell out of a tree and gotten attacked by hawks, and they bottle raised her for a couple weeks and then we took over. And then Piper came from her friend Zoo. We need a buddy for Pippin, and it's not really easy to go find a raccoon that needs a home. So our friends needed some goats. We needed Pippin, a friend. So we made a little change. They got some baby goats for their zoo. We got Piper, the Cotamundi. And these guys have been best friends for about 2 years now. They lived the first 6 months inside of our house before we built this enclosure for them, and they've been out here since then. Just to make sure that they never escape, we do have a little trap door on here for them. And then we also have a fence around the outside to make sure that nobody else interacts with them. They can get kind of aggressive. So I am super careful with who comes in here. Jonas and I have been taking care of these guys and been around these guys for quite a while. So we're both safe to be around. And she's a little thick like me, but that's because we like food. This girl's actually tattooed on my leg right here, sitting on top of Freya's head. The coolest thing about raccoons is that all their pee and poop goes in one tub. She does all her peeing and pooping in there, and then all of her food when she drinks water, or if she wants to take her food in water, she'll take it inside of her other pond. Oh, and this little girl is the South American version of a raccoon. These guys live as far north as Arizona and as far south as Brazil. And they are very social, and they're also diurnal. So because she's diurnal and she's bonded with Pippin, she actually causes the raccoon to stay awake during the day. And I absolutely love this girl to death. She was raised by her mom in captivity, and then when she became the appropriate age, she was able to be introduced with Pippin, and they've been friends ever since. And all she wants to do is get inside my shirt, because that's where she stayed when she was a baby. And now my shirt's gonna be all stretched out for the rest of the video. That's my good girl. And when she gets excited, that hair comes up on her back like a little mohawk. And a lot of people want raccoons and coatis for pets, but it's super important to remember that these are not domesticated animals, they're wild animals. If you do have them as a pet, you're gonna wanna build a massive enclosure outside for them, like Jonas and I did with this enclosure, and make sure they have appropriate housing, plenty of sources of water to play with, and lots of enrichment, swings, ropes, things like that. And they also require daily care, even though they are outside. We have to come in here every day and hose this out and change the water. They get vet care twice a year. The vet comes out to make sure that they're up to date on all their shots. All right, guys, and so that's pretty much it for Pippin and Piper, just to show you guys everything that they have. And then they also have This is their heated house right here. And this is their summertime house. It does not have heat in it, but it has a nice flap and it stays super shaded. And then they have bins that we bury their food in so that they have to search for food. And then that's their clean water where they like to get in and lay in the summertime. And then they have their little feeding platform here that they get their snacks on all day. Most importantly to note, whenever you come to our farm, you're gonna see a lot of cats. We have 16 cats here and 17 dogs. So if you don't like cats or dogs or goats, you probably shouldn't come to a farm. At the farm, we do a lot of birthday parties for members of the public and a lot of private events. We have this pavilion here that has our solar panels on the roof, and we use that for different events during the summertime if it's too hot or if it's raining. Stepping over this gate right here is where our biggest reptile lives, Kenan. He's our sulcata tortoise, and he's about 25 years old. He is a owner surrender as well, and this is his house right here. It's a little cool outside, so he's sitting in his warm spot. And we've got a camera and temperature monitors on this enclosure as well. And we can close this door if it's getting too cold outside. But he has access to this whole area. We've got our small bird aviary over here with our cockatiel, our Senegal parakeet, and a couple of quail on the bottom just to keep it nice and clean. And these guys are all owner surrenders from different homes. Great birds. As you can see, more cats, Danny and Say. We've got our African gray parrots here, Paco, Jasmine, and Scooby. And then we've got our Amazon parrots over here. We've got Baby, Malachite, and Sapphire. Baby used to love me. Like, this bird can literally sleep in the bed with me, but now he's bonded with Malachite, and he doesn't want me to touch anything in this cage, and he will attack everything. Malachite has always hated me. But I love having them outside because birds do not handle indoor the air inside of homes very well because the air gets polluted really quick with the dander that's on their bodies. So it's really important to keep birds outside as much as possible. We close these completely in with plastic, greenhouse plastic, and we have outdoor heaters for all of our aviaries so that in the wintertime they can stay outside year round. It's only a few hurricanes every couple of years that we have to bring these guys inside. And then we also have our birthing barn right here. This is where we'll bring our goats to before they have babies so that they're in a nice, safe, controlled area and have their babies under the camera where we can make sure that we're here in case there's any issues. And it's also where our cats, like Jason here, spend most of their time at and where the cats get fed at. What's up, girl? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to invade your privacy. And the cats also have their own little heated houses as well. And then moving up to the store and dairy is where all the magic happens. This is our goat holding stall. This is where the goats come to wait before they get milked. In a little bit, Carter's actually going to be milking the goats. And we'll put about 15 to 20 goats inside this stall. And they'll walk up this ramp 7 at a time into our dairy in there. And then after they get milked, they'll come down on that side and wait there before we take them back to their pen. And just because we do this so routinely every day, they do get used to doing it, and they do it pretty much on their own. They come up here by themselves and get milked and go inside. And then here is our cockatoos. We've got 3 cockatoos. Our 3 cockatoos are all 3 owner surrenders. And these guys are just waiting on us to raise the funds to be able to build them a massive aviary similar to what we have for the macaws. And they should hopefully be going inside of a new aviary this year, we're hoping. But we've got our 3 cockatoos, an umbrella, a Moluccan, and a Gaufin's cockatoo. And then Jonas's favorite animal probably is going to be his opossum, Fredo. Fredo came to us after he got attacked by a cat when he was only about that big. And we had to sit for a couple of hours picking maggots off of him where flies had laid eggs all over his body and the eggs had hatched out and turned into maggots. And he was just about dead, but we had several rehabbers that were actually staying at our Airbnb that night, and they were able to help us nurse this guy back to health, and he's been here ever since. He did lose part of his ears because of an infection and will always be in captivity, but this guy will get to live a long, healthy life with us, which unfortunately is only about 3 years in captivity for opossums.
These guys sleep in the most awkward position in the face of the planet. Like, I don't know how this is comfortable for him, but somehow it is. He's another nocturnal animal, but he is an absolute foodie and will always wake up for a snack. Fredo, what's up, buddy? Buddy, I got an apple for you. You wanna wake up for an apple? Do you want a treat, big man? But yeah, absolutely love this guy.
So, and we don't always go into all the stories about all the animals, but 2 of these cockatoos were actually living in a small cage in somebody's backyard, and she was going to turn them loose if we didn't come get them right then. But Jonas and I were actually in Florida when we got the phone call, So it wasn't for a couple days that we were able to go get them, but she was able to keep them alive in 100-degree weather and wanted us to actually put them on the back of the truck and bring them home in the cage. But we had to take them back inside of our house, put them in kennels, and to be able to safely transport them. But these guys are safe and sound now and living a good life, getting lots of nuts from you guys that y'all send to us for them. This girl came from someone that the previous owner was actually in the hospital, and the kids called us because they lived on the other side of the country and they hadn't seen their mother in several months. And this girl was living in horrible conditions. She had about this much poop in her cage and seeds, and she was just awful. I had to reach in the cage, grab her, and stick her in a kennel. It was like a hoarder's house. Like, it was nothing I'd ever seen before. It was horrible. But this girl will live with us safe and sound for the rest of her life. She's estimated to be around 19 years old. One of the main things you're gonna see when you come here is lots and lots of bamboo. This is my absolute favorite plant in the world, and I swear I'm gonna cover the entire farm with bamboo if it doesn't do it itself. But this is Moso bamboo, and inside the area where our Moso bamboo is our redfoot enclosure. Our redfoots are a South American tortoise species. These guys actually came, they were found roaming loose, and then one of them was an owner surrender, but these guys have been with us for several years now, and the female actually lays eggs a couple times a year, but they're just staying in there where it's about 100 degrees, and then if it gets warmer outside, they'll come out also. And then here is the front of our farm store. Our farm store, when we first moved here, you could actually, it was a garage door, and it was a shop that the previous owners used to work on cars, and we turned it into our dairy and our reptile room. So if you guys want to walk in, we're going to do a quick panoramic, and I'm going to get Jonas to link right here, the link to more information about our reptiles and another link for more information about our goat dairy. We have videos on both of those. All right, guys, and then one of the areas that I always want to see at other facilities that I feel like people never show is like the prep area. So this is our prep area where we make everybody's breakfasts in the morning. Breakfasts, is that a word, Jonas? Jonas, it's a word. That's where we make everybody's breakfasts in the morning. And then this is our fridge where we store our milk at, and it's also where we store all the animal food at. And then we've got all our knives and then all of our dry food for all of the animals in here. So this is everything from treats for the kinkajous to parrot food, quail food, ferret food, and then dubia roaches and everything else in between. And then we've got a freezer here that we keep all of our rats and mice and everything that we feed the reptiles in. Some fresh fruit right here. The best hoof trimming device in the world. We've got some signs we got to put up. And treats for all the animals, calcium powder, things like that. And then, of course, we've got a hand washing sink here, as well as a sink to clean all the dishes and everything. The sous vide that we have for the goats to heat up their bottles, all of our cutting stuff, and our microscope for when we do fecals. And of course, you gotta have, every good facility has their medicine cabinet. So we gotta have our medicine cabinet for first aid and emergencies, and then that's all of our records right there. It's very important to keep records whenever you have a place like this, just to make sure that who's been vaccinated and things like that. And then also that way it makes it a lot easier for the veterinarian. We hope that you guys enjoyed. We definitely appreciate you watching. Like I said, I can't believe how many followers we have. This has definitely been life-changing for the sanctuary. And as you can imagine, there's a whole lot of money that gets poured into this place every day. So knowing that we can share it with you guys makes it all worth it. And we're gonna try and start recording a whole lot more. Let us know how you like this style, just kind of walking around. I'm gonna try and get Jonas behind the camera a little bit more. I know everybody loves Jonas. So I'm gonna try and get him behind the camera a little bit more, and we're gonna try and turn out these videos every week for you guys. So let us know down below if you like it. Be sure to subscribe and hit that like button, and we appreciate you guys. Cannot believe how many of y'all are following us. We thank y'all so much. Let us know what you want to see more of, and until next time, we'll goat you later. Babies.